everybody, it's Elysabeth Alfano. Welcome to Plant-Based Life and Style. I have such a fun show for you today. Now, usually, as you know, I break down the news and I talk about my cooking class. We go over some recipes and some health tips. But today, Plant-Based Life and Style becomes the Plant-Based Business Hour. That's right, it's a Plant-Based Business Hour takeover because I have such an incredible guest, a woman who is reinventing seafood. That's right. Plant-based seafood. Wrap your mind around that. Monica Talbert's going to be joining me in just a minute. But before I get to an in-depth interview about what the heck is plant-based seafood and where are we going with seafood, I do want to break down some news like always. So, okay, let's get into it. Oh, it is getting colder in some parts of the country, and Gardein and a company called Upton's Naturals are ready. They're both launching plant-based soups, things like plant-based chicken and noodle, plant-based beef and vegetable, plant-based sausage and gumbo, plant-based chicken and rice, plant-based minestrone and sausage. These are just some of the plant-based soups that are coming your way. So look for those in the grocery store as it starts to get colder. Also, the largest food and beverage company in the world, Nestle, has launched a new R&D innovation center. They are doing regular milk innovative strategies there, but they're also really looking to hone in on their plant-based milk strategies and to really further innovation there. Lovely to see Nestle's getting with the program. The faster, the better, Nestle. And also, long before I started this radio show, Plant-Based Life and Style, or my sister show, the Plant-Based Business Hour. In 2019, an independent think tank, Rethink X, came out and said, by 2030, meat and dairy will, for all practical purposes, be dead. At the time, that was thought to be outlandish. But recently, at an alternative proteins conference in early September, companies were talking about this 2030 timeframe for meat and dairy really to no longer be existing as viable entities. They won't go away, but they won't be the viable entities they were before, is really coming to pass. And I can tell you this, all my listeners, as a member of the Glasswell Syndicate, which is a plant-based investing group, you don't even know all the products that are coming down the pipeline that are going to make it to your grocery stores 6 months from now, 12 months from now, 18 months from now. Because COVID has not only been a tailwind for everyone cooking plant-based in their kitchen and looking at their health, and really a tailwind for all plant-based items in general and having more time to cook at home, but it's been the same for plant-based inventors. They're also doing more cooking and doing more inventing. So you're just going to see more and more of these products coming your way. And for those of you who are thinking, well, how the heck do I start this plant-based lifestyle? I hope that you will join me on October 24th. I have my every season class I give, Jumpstart Your Plant-Based Life. I help you with a tailored menu plan just for you so that you can get with the program. That might be 7 days a week for you. That might just be 1 day a week. Wherever you want to start the program is great for you, but I'll give you all the tips and tricks to get through parties and dinners out, and what to put in your kitchen and what to take out of your kitchen, and lots of recipes. So go to elizabethalfano.com/recipes so that you can join me online October 24th and jumpstart your plant-based life. You will find that, in fact, it's mind-blowing. Now, hold on. Talk about mind-blowing. I want to bring in my guest today. She is the co-founder of the Plantbased Seafood Company. Welcome, Monica Talbert, to the Plant-Based Business Hour. It's a Plant-Based Business Hour takeover. Welcome to the Plant-Based Business Hour. I'm so happy to have you here.
Oh my gosh, so excited. So excited to get going.
Yes, me too. Okay, so for a lot of my listeners, they might be thinking, what the heck is plant-based seafood? Let's ratchet it back a little bit. Tell me why you started the Plant-Based Seafood Company and a little bit about your background, which I believe was in regular seafood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We've had a really interesting journey. And since we have an hour, I'll go ahead and start from the very beginning.
Great.
I grew up in our family's seafood restaurant and market. We actually started when I was back in middle school, and we had this tiny little crab shack. It was like 400 square feet, I think. And, we rented as a family. And over the years, we became more successful, and we grew to a larger seafood market, and then a restaurant and a retail shop. Because we ran it as a family, we loved what we did. And I think that showed through our products. We had a lot of retailers that came to us back in 2013 and wanted us to go into retail. And we thought that would be a fun challenge. So, we sold the restaurant and we went into retail, which mass production, right? So our suppliers went from being these small crabbers who, were small time. We vacationed with them, we knew them very well, to large international exporters, where product was coming in container ships. And so it was a whole completely different industry when we stepped into that mass production, into the global seafood industry that we know today. And that's where we really started to see some unacceptable things go on. And I'm going to preface this really quickly with, the seafood industry is full of really great companies, really, people that focus on integrity and sustainability. However, the things that we were encountering were really disheartening. Everything from chemical glazing that's not told or
what is that?
to the consumer. Price fixing, mislabeling. So a lot of people were taking crab meat and repackaging it into, taking it from Asia, repackaging it as Chesapeake Bay crab meat, things like that. Like that was common. And, to say we were disheartened was, probably an understatement. So here in, I think 2015, I go over to Southeast Asia. This is a supply, trip. And we're at this crab processing plant and everything's going great. We sit down and we're starting to talk business, and me just being young. And I thought, it'd be really fun to see how they fished and what kind of boats they had and how they actually caught the fish. Like it was cages, just like we do back home. And all of a sudden, when I asked to see that, the conversation got really tense and really kind of awkward. And I think the word like forbidden was used. It was just really, kind of strange, right? So I come back from the trip, and 2 months later, the explosive AP report comes out about slavery in seafood, in the seafood supply chain. And it was in the exact region that I had been in just 2 months before. And actually, I have this is the AP book right here, Fishermen Slaves. And if you ever need a good cry or to lose any more faith in humanity, I would go ahead and pick that up.
I just want to read something from your website, because just to put a little bit of a umbrella on this for people. This show is all about plant-based eating and foods and products and business, but it isn't just the plant-based animal health perspective. I read this about the seafood industry from your own website. During the 20 years of working in the seafood industry, we witnessed firsthand the unacceptable and often hidden practices in the seafood industry, from overfishing to mislabeling, as you said, to chemical glazing. We'll find out what that is, to child labor, to human trafficking and modern day slavery. These are just to name a few. The seafood industry, along with the $10 billion illegal seafood industry, is hiding so many secrets from consumers and devastating our oceans. Just to give people an understanding about how far reaching this issue is. Sorry to interrupt you, Monica. I'll let you take it from there.
Fine. I think at that moment when I came back and I realized that, thank gosh, we didn't purchase any product from this company. And there's no way I could go back and connect the two. But just the sheer fact that I could have used products and or used seafood in my products and then resold it to consumers who trusted me as a brand. Just the fact that that could have happened, that changed me. And it changed how I saw the industry. And instead of seeing the industry as something I was a part of, I was looking at it as how do I change you? How do I make you better? How do I disrupt in a positive way to create positive impact on so many things that are suffering because of it? And so we came up with, a couple years later, a brand called Wild Skinny Clean. And that was my answer to it all. That was wild and sustainable caught seafood from America, from American fishermen, giving back to the communities that had been hurt from, imported cheap seafood. And it was, soy-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, so truly healthy, and clean label. So no chemical glazing, which is really commonplace. It's a chemical that you put into frozen seafood to retain moisture and profits. So I wanted to create this brand that people could trust. And at the last minute, before our launch, we had been playing with this plant-based crab cake, and we were having a lot of fun with it. It was like a new challenge, and we were fooling people. And so that was what, so we're like, you know what? Everything about this plant-based crab cake fits in the mission with Wild Skinny Clean. Let's just add it in. This is a last minute decision. And the launch came and went, and I had so many phone calls from all over the world, from people wanting to bring the product in and investors. And I'm like, I'm prepared to talk about the fish line. And they're like, oh, no. It's not the fish line. It's the plant-based seafood. And I was so taken aback. The whole team was. And at that moment, that's when it all clicked. That it wasn't necessarily maybe Wild Skinny Clean that was going to be the thing that disrupted the industry and changed everything for the better. It was going to be plant-based seafood, and I was going to be a part of it.
So I love this. What year are we talking when you realized, oh gosh, it's plant-based seafood that's going to change the industry?
It was January of this year.
It was January of this year. Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh.
So really fast.
Yes, so much has happened this year, so incredibly fast. And speaking about fast, we're going to go quickly to break, but keep it locked, folks, because it's a Plant-Based Business Hour takeover of plant-based life and style. I'm Elysabeth Alfano, and I'm coming right back with the co-founder of the Plantbased Seafood Company, Monica Talbert. So much to talk about that you are all going to be seeing in your grocery store so very shortly. Keep it locked. Oh, everybody who's watching us online, this is a pre-tape of my radio show, and I did decide that I wanted to do a takeover, bring the plant-based business into plant-based life and style. So LinkedIn, if you're a tad bit confused, it's because it's a crazy day and we're doing a lot of things. But I'm going to get right back to Monica Talbert because I want to show everybody all the products that are going to be in the store. Here we go. Oh, it's Plant-Based Life and Style. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. Today is a Plant-Based Business Hour takeover. Monica Talbert, who's the co-founder of Plantbased Seafood Company, is with me. And we were talking about how she thought she was going to have a clean label of fish. And then she realized that the industry is really going plant-based. Monica, tell me what plant-based seafood products you have out now.
So we have our plant-based crab cakes, which is our very first product that we launched, and then also our coconut shrimp. We also have bay scallops, and for sale online, we have dusted shrimp as well, and plain shrimp.
Yes. So I am very excited. I just am going to your website and I'm seeing some of these images. I'm so very excited to get my hands on the shrimp in particular, but I'm curious, what is leading the pack here? Is it the crab cakes or the shrimp or the scallops?
It's the shrimp. The shrimp actually won the most innovative product of 2020 by Prepared Foods Spirit of Innovation Awards. And that one is actually, we did a test market in Greenwise markets down in Florida and in Georgia and Alabama, and it's done really, really well. So that is the very first product that we launched into the grocery store, and then it won an award. But the bay scallops that we launched, I'd say about 2 weeks ago, we've been getting amazing feedback from consumers. It's so much fun. It's just so much fun. If you ever get a chance to go on Instagram, we have a lot of the testimonials on there, and they're just really fun to read. People that gave up seafood so long ago, but they miss it so much. We hear it so often. They're very passionate about telling us how awesome our products are. So it's been fun.
Well, it is wonderful because we've listed all these ethical reasons, and the planet, the environment, our oceans, obviously human trafficking. Obviously, there's some real issues here. But in addition, a lot of people have seafood allergies. And so I'm one of those people. I can eat shrimp, I can eat oysters, but I can't eat scallops. It's very strange. I can eat all seafood, but only scallops is the one thing that'll really send me reeling. So I can't wait to get my hands on these scallops. I hadn't realized that it had only launched about 2 weeks ago. So you are really in full gear.
Yeah, and we say, we offer an alternative for whatever reason you want to go plant-based seafood, for whatever reason, whether it's gout, whether you have a shellfish allergy, whether, you are more into animal activism or climate change or environment, whatever reason you have for going plant-based, we're here to give you that alternative where you don't have to sacrifice any taste.
Yes, it's amazing because it is possible to not sacrifice taste. And
Mhm.
I want to talk about the other two legs of the triangle of the tripod, which would be convenience, so having it accessible in the grocery stores, and price parity. So I do want to get into that.
Mhm.
But people are going to be asking, okay, so it's plant-based seafood. What the heck is in it? So tell me about taste, how you get to that taste profile and the texture profile, and what is in the plant-based shrimp, crab cakes, and scallops.
So it goes through a long process of, doing the taste and the texture. But it's different for each product as well. So the crab cake, we actually did over 100 different variations of the crab cake before we felt like we got it right. And we've been working with real seafood so long, we know exactly how to mimic it. It's a family-owned company, so my mom is in charge of product development, and she's just a complete genius. She's come up with so many recipes that have landed on retail shelves and Oprah's favorite lists and Governor Mansion menus and things like that. She's absolutely fantastic and knows her craft so well. And so we use in the crab cake, we do hearts of palm, artichoke hearts, and also cabbage. So cabbage helps weave. So the crab meat in a crab cake actually weaves into the other ingredients that you have. And that's really important for the appearance and the texture. So after you cook it, and the fork feel is what Shelly always says. The fork, you have to have that fork feel. And the other ingredients that we have in the crab cake are, it's worth noting, soy-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, corn-free. We wanted to make sure that not only, so for the number one reason we know that flexitarians move to a plant-based diet is for health reasons. So we wanted to come right out of the gate with the most healthiest product possible, because we don't want to have to go back and take anything out. And then, the shrimp, konjac, we use konjac root for the shrimp and for the scallop. And that's a fantastic, ingredient, because
What is that ingredient again?
it's called the konjac root. And you put it in powder form and then boil it down, and then you can put it into the mold for scallops or for shrimp. But it's what gives the sponge that bounce back. And another bonus is that World Health Organization has named it one of the top 10 healthiest foods on earth.
I'd never heard of it before. That's okay. I'm gonna. Can I cook with it Can you do small batch cooking with that, or it's really intended for large batch?
I suppose you could. I've only used it in large batch.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
you could ask Shelly that one.
Yeah. Okay. So you're nailing it on the taste profile, because of course you have this long history in seafood, and you have your mom. So, you've got the secret weapon clearly in your back pocket. What about price and convenience? So in other words, when are we going to see it nationally distributed? This is one of the tricky things with plant-based items. You often see them in San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Brooklyn. Okay, well, we need more than that. So when will we see national distribution, if that's possible? And then how do you compare on price?
So price is interesting. Our goal is to have price parity. Right now we're a little bit higher, but we know our end goal is to be more affordable than the plant-based options. I think, you really, to get that flexitarian to pull that product off the shelf, at first we're telling them it's mind blown. So they know it's good, right? And if they know who we are, we're coming from the seafood industry. Hopefully they trust us on taste. That was the whole thought process by naming it Mind Blown Plant-Based Seafood. But it also has to be affordable. And how awesome would it be when we do get to be more affordable than, the alternative.
And I just want to map that out for people. So just to give you an anecdotal answer, but then also you can find the statistics behind it. I was in Italy not too long ago, and they have this morning routine of the fishermen who go out and they come back, and then everyone can buy straight off the boat in this tiny, small, remote town in Sicily. The boats were coming back empty. I don't mean a light load. I mean empty. So we have overfished the oceans to such an extreme capacity, and we'll get into it in the next segment, but supply and demand. So you're going to see the cost of seafood rise as the demand of seafood still continues to rise. It's such a staple in all of Asia. So you're going to see that price continue to rise because we don't really have those supplies. And then therein comes plant-based, I would think.
Well, you're actually already seeing it with salmon because of COVID.
Sure.
So that the increase in price there.
Yeah, that makes total sense. We're going to head to break. Gosh, I hate to do it. We're going to head to break, but we're going to find out more about how you can get your hands on plant-based seafood from the Plantbased Seafood Company. Keep it locked. We'll be right back. It goes fast pre-taping a radio show. We're already 2 segments in. Oh, gosh. Okay, everybody. Thanks for sticking with us while we, in theory, get our commercials out of the way. And then we're going to come right back. Here we go. Monica, you are such a wealth of information. Thank you for being with me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
It's Plant-Based Life and Style. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. It's a Plant-Based Business Hour takeover today of Plant-Based Life and Style because I want everyone to wrap their minds around the fact that plant-based seafood is coming. I've got co-founder of the Plantbased Seafood Company, Monica Talbert, here, an expert in the seafood industry and a long family history of working with seafood. And now she's turned her attention for lots of reasons, ethical reasons, environmental reasons, animal welfare reasons, and health reasons. She's turned her attention to plant-based seafood. So we're talking about, you're matching it on taste and texture and price and convenience. When do you think realistically that you might have it distributed across the United States?
I think realistically, we're looking at, late next year to be, and now we'll have national distribution in probably one store before that, but to have maybe more than one national account will probably be that by the end of next year.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the challenges you're seeing? Because again, you have this incredible history. There are other plant-based seafoods out there, and they don't have this fishing history, this relationship with seafood that you have historically. What are some of the challenges that you see in scaling up and also getting the products to really nail? You've got 3 products down, but like I'm waiting for that fillet of salmon, so what are some of the challenges that you see out there?
So the challenges that we have, interestingly enough, are the same challenges that we had in our other company. Because the seafood industry is hard to penetrate if you're a small company. It's just dominated. The whole market is dominated by global companies, and so having that distribution network is just hard to build. It takes time. So we're working on that, and that's the same that we had in the other company, as well. But, David hit the nail on the head last week on Plant-Based Business Hour with him. It's co-packing, co-manufacturing, and production, volume production to scale. So we have so much inquiry in business right now, and we are working as hard as we can to be able to fill that need. And like I said, it's like he was speaking right to me, or we had just talked, and he was like, "What's your biggest challenge?" Because hands down, that's what it is.
Yeah. And that's what it is for all plant-based companies, I'm finding, really. Do you see yourself as ultimately getting your own manufacturing plant?
Well, that's definitely in the cards. That's definitely something we speak about. Pulling in from lessons that we've learned from other company. No one makes your product as best as you do, and to have that control over quality, especially as you scale, is extremely important. So we're keeping that in mind as we grow.
And do you ever worry about IP? I mean, perhaps you don't because you're looking at making your own manufacturing plant, but I would think if I were producing and I was sharing these plants with other producers and companies, I would be worried about IP.
Yeah, it's funny when I heard that Good Catch was they had built this huge warehouse, and they might be private labeling or packaging, co-packaging for their own brands, and I'm like, interesting. I'm like, what? Probably not. Yeah, IP is just something you have to keep a close eye on. Especially right now, I feel like I'm in the Wild West right now with plant-based seafood. There's so much interest, there's so much investment money out there, and there's not a lot of companies doing it.
That's right. Yeah. And they are all focusing, in my experience, really on things like shrimp. So I'm waiting to see, as I said, those tuna fillets, those salmon fillets, those white fish fillets. When do you think we might see some of those things?
From us or in general?
In general. So I guess sort of general market trends. I don't know if you can talk about predictions for plant-based seafood in general, but also, with your own company in mind, when do you think we'll see maybe a tipping point, let's say, because we are very nascent in plant-based seafood, but when do you think we might see a tipping point for the industry?
I say it's coming. I can feel it coming. There's a lot of investment money going into it, a lot of startups popping up every day. I think that we'll see plant-based salmon probably next year. They're doing really amazing things with 3D printing salmon. So I think they're going to work on getting that to scale, and they'll figure that out probably next year. We've been working on it. We have a raw version, but we're looking at a cooked version, and right now it's not blowing minds yet. So we're still working on that.
Yeah, it's very interesting because we were talking about this before. The global trend for seafood consumption, not plant-based seafood, but actual seafood, is on the rise, and it is a staple in all of Asia. And that, as we continue to go from 7 billion people to 10 billion people on the planet, there's more and more demand for seafood. And obviously, the oceans can't handle that demand. And commercial fishing, we can talk about the environmental impacts in just a bit, but the commercial fishing doesn't help us because you're just polluting the oceans even more. So you not only do you have these overfished oceans, you have these very sick oceans. So it'll be interesting to me if those who have been born and bred, let's say in Asia, on a seafood diet, if you think that they will come around to plant-based seafood.
Oh, I think they already are. The Asian market is wild for plant-based alternatives right now. I think you just saw it was Impossible that opened a plant. Impossible Beyond, just opened
Beyond.
Beyond meat. So, and we get a lot of interest and inquiries from Asia. So I don't think that that's too far off. I do believe that the world has an insatiable appetite for seafood. And as, the Indian markets and Chinese markets, the middle class, keeps rising at the rate that they are, they're going to be able to afford seafood, and they're going to be able to afford it more often. And that's, something we need to realize. And the ocean, it can't come from the oceans. This statistic, only 7% of the fish stocks are actually healthy that we can pull from. 7% is not going to feed the population that will be here in 2050 of 10 billion people. It's just not going to happen. And, you have aquaculture that's trying to fill that gap now. But it's not a silver bullet, and aquaculture comes with a whole host of problems. And that's where I really see plant-based seafood being, a great alternative for overfishing and aquaculture. And we fit right in there with that, with offering, a sustainable means to feeding our population.
So much to unpack there. For those who may not know, aquaculture is cellular fish. So the fish that is grown, I don't mean this disparagingly, in a lab, but it is from cells of the fish, which means you don't have to catch the fish or kill the fish and grow the fish and have commercial fishing and then antibiotics because you've got too many fish living on top of each other with no fresh water coming in, et cetera, et cetera. So it does handle a lot of the issues, but it's a long way from getting to market as well. The cellular
stuff. I meant aquaculture, like fish farming.
Oh, you meant fish farming. Okay, because they all call it aquaculture from cellular. Okay, you're talking about fish farming. Oh, yes, host of environmental issues there.
So they're working on it. We're involved with the Hatch Accelerator that, typically started off, they're an aquaculture accelerator. So I get to see really cool innovations that they're doing there. So they're making strides, but when it comes down to it, we still have a host of issues going on. Antibiotics, antibiotic-resistant bacteria. You have, farms that are tearing down mangroves, and mangroves are, they capture a whole bunch of CO2, so that's an environmental problem. It's not a silver bullet, and the industry needs plant-based or cell-based seafood to fill in the gap.
Yes, absolutely. And you did give a statistic that I had not heard before, that only 7% of the catch is healthy from the ocean. Explain that number.
90% is either, so 60% is at capacity, 30% is completely overfished, and roughly or approximately 7% of the fish stocks are actually healthy. And
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so that actually gets me into the illegal seafood industry and why it's so important to talk about and to tackle. Most people don't know about the illegal seafood industry. It's a $25 billion industry. And I know I quoted 10 billion on my site, which I have to update. So now it's 25 billion. The illegal seafood industry, also referred to as IUU, so it's illegal, underreported, and unregulated, and often mislabeled seafood. It is the main driver for overfishing.
Yeah.
And overfishing is the main driver for, species extinction, obviously, human trafficking, slave labor, and also polluting the oceans. So another thing, I know you probably know this, but most consumers don't know that most of the plastic in the ocean is fishing gear.
Oh.
And a lot of that comes from the illegal seafood industry because they're not regulated. Nobody regulates them. They don't have to pull the fishing nets back. And so it's a really big problem. And we have huge consequences going on from the illegal seafood industry. And I'm really passionate about, tackling this because the UN back in 2011 came out with a report on the illegal seafood industry. It's like transnational criminal activity and illegal fishing. And they have this whole long report. And at the bottom of it, it talks about the solution. And the number one solution, wouldn't you know, the number one solution, it's not legislation or reform, it's decreasing the demand for the seafood by creating consumer awareness that all of these things are going on. This was back in 2011. I don't think I'm any more, or consumers are any more aware of the issues that are going on than they were in 2011. But I don't understand that because this is the number one solution the UN is giving the world to fix this. And so
I have to have a talking to the UN, clearly, because the solution is plant-based seafood. Sorry.
That's what I mean. So that was another aha moment for me when I'm researching all this all over again. And I'm thinking, well, what better solution to decrease the demand by creating consumer awareness? Because what's been so amazing is what was daunting for me before was having to educate the consumer on all of these things because it's expensive and it's hard. And I think one time I brought to the team a name for a new line, which is slave-free seafood. They're like,
wait, I would buy that. I don't know. Hold on. I hate to do this. We're going to break. We're going to be right back. It's a Plant-Based Business Hour takeover on Plant-Based Life and Style. Oh my God, you're a wealth of knowledge. I'm so happy you're here today. I want to get more into that. I hadn't seen that UN report. It's disconcerting. Yes. Oh, it's Plant-Based Life and Style. I'm Elysabeth Alfano, and it's a Plant-Based Business Hour takeover. We are getting into the business of plant-based seafood. Yes, it's happening, and it's out there. Monica Talbert is the co-founder of the Plantbased Seafood Company. I'm so happy to have you with me. I hate to break for commercials because you're a wealth of knowledge, and I love that you're sharing this with my listeners. So before we went to break, we were talking about how we have this untenable, unsustainable situation with the overfishing in our oceans and the unhealthy nature of our oceans. And the UN directive is as really not being that helpful. They're calling for more education to sort of wake people up, but that's not really changing demand. And as we know, demand really changes when you give people a very easy replacement, and it's going to be the taste, price, and convenience that just replaces very simply what they already love. So disconcerting from the UN. Maybe you can give us some other environmental stats about the state of our oceans and what commercial fishing is doing to them.
Well, some statistics that I wish more consumers knew about. 65% of the seafood consumed in the United States is imported. And if you look at most, you Google that, it'll say 90%, but that's because the rest is actually caught in the US, but it's shipped overseas to be processed, and then it's imported back into the United States. Gosh. So technically, yes, it's 90% is imported, but it's actually 65% of that is foreign origin. Mm-hmm. Statistically, 20 to 30% of that is seafood that is involved in the illegal seafood industry or trade, which is alarming. But also, when you look at how much seafood is actually being inspected by the FDA, it gets even worse. So less than 2% of this imported seafood that we now know 20 to 30% is involved in the illegal seafood industry. Less than 2% is actually inspected by the FDA or the customs, and less than 1% is actually tested for antibiotics, illegal drugs, or even a DNA test that it's what they say it is. If it comes in and says grouper, it might be tilapia. So they do DNA testing. It's less than 1%. So from a consumer standpoint, even myself for buying, and consuming seafood, that was alarming to me.
Mhm.
And it's
But why
going.
is it so low? Like 1%. That seems like, is it because they just randomly test here and there and there's no even attempt at actually testing everything? Or
I think so. I think maybe they're just inundated, but I will tell you that that also hurts American fishing communities as well, because they can't compete, right? So they have these high standards that they have to work by or live by, and then you have this imported seafood that doesn't have to live by these standards, and so of course they come in at a lower price, and all kinds of fishing communities have just been uprooted because they can't compete with this inexpensive cheap seafood that's coming over, and it's not fair. It's not even being inspected.
right. Well, you bring on a whole new topic that I'm very interested in. I feel very strongly for the plant-based meats and plant-based dairy. I am 100% pro the American farmer. In fact, I want a better life standard for the American farmer. And at this point, they are almost indentured servants,
Mm-hmm.
given what the contract wages that they have when farming animals. How does the seafood industry, the small communities or the large communities that through your past dealings, how do they warm up to or not warm up to the idea of plant-based competition here?
The smaller communities, I don't think are so concerned, right? I see plant-based seafood as helping those, because I want to compete with the imported seafood, the ones that's actually hurting them. And so it's the larger conglomerates that I think are having a hard time. And we already know they're having a hard time, and they'll be coming after plant-based seafood for labeling issues, which I think this was brought up on your show before, which is interesting because the seafood industry itself has some pretty terrible labeling issues as well.
Well, we'll see, because then it's going to be a can of worms for the seafood industry to attack the plant-based seafood industry for labeling when they themselves have such sketchy labeling issues that need to be sorted out. So, as you say, it does very much feel like the wild, wild west, but without the animals, without the fish, at least here in this case. Okay, you have this dynamic business that is changing as rapidly as from January 1st of this year, and your scallops are just out as of like 2 weeks ago, and you're looking at national distribution, hopefully within the next 12 months, give or take. I'm wondering what kind of tips you would give to entrepreneurs, because we are seeing in COVID, it's the tailwind of not just everybody eating more plant-based, but everyone has more time in their kitchen, and there's so many entrepreneurs coming out with new products they too have been testing in their kitchen. So what tips would you give to entrepreneurs? Because you have done a lot in a very short amount of time.
I would say the number one thing, the most important thing to know, and this sounds so cliche, but it's really important, is to not give up. So as an entrepreneur, especially with everything that's going on, all the competition that you're about to see, you're going to be going through obstacles. You are going to fail. You are going to trip. You're going to be put in uncomfortable situations outside of your comfort zone. But if you're passionate and you truly believe in your gut that you're doing the right thing, don't give up. And your vision of what success looks like might be different. And that's exactly what happened to me. I'm so glad I didn't give up, years ago when, we were going through a lot within the company. And that was right before we started Wild Skinny Clean. And I followed my passion and followed my gut, and look at where I am now. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a plant-based seafood company. It's wild. I would have never, you would have told me that 5 years ago, I would have just laughed and cried. And, but look at me. And it's just because I just kept persevering and didn't give up. And it's really easy to do that in a competitive landscape.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it can be overwhelming, but there's something so very fun about being on the cutting edge. I mean, as you say, we've said it a couple times now, the wild, wild west. I mean, in a way, you can't really fail, because anything you do, you're so new. This is such a new industry. Anything you do is moving the needle forward. So anything you do is an advancement. Whether you have to reinvent yourself, and you probably will, you'll have to pivot and pivot and pivot, the classic entrepreneurial stance, you'll have to pivot and pivot, but it is such an exciting time. Is there anything personally that you have on your sort of bucket list, I'll say, of I really want to get this product to market?
Ooh, We've come out with an awesome lobster that's almost ready. And I think that's really exciting. And so I'm looking forward to being able to launch that within the next few months.
Do you have taste testers? How can I be a taste tester
Okay,
for the
so this
lobster?
is also a really awesome point. So we are headquartered on a little island in the Chesapeake Bay. And we have a tasting room, and we just opened it. But so we're going to be inviting these lifetime watermen and women and seafood lovers, and we have to pass their test. If it doesn't blow their mind, if they don't love it, if they don't think that it tastes so close to the real thing, we have to keep working. And so, yeah, we have some pretty strict taste testers, but it's fun. All of it is so fun, and that's what's great. Another advice, I think, to entrepreneurs, like, you're on the right track when you're having fun, when you just absolutely love what you're doing, even if it's hard, even if you're having obstacles. I'm having more fun now than I have in my whole career.
I love it. It's Plant-Based Life and Style. I hate to end it here, but everybody just have a whole bunch of fun. I think that's where we're going to end it on. If you want more information, go to ElysabethAlfano.com and plantbasedseafood.com. Monica, I hope you'll come back. Everybody, I will see you next week. Don't go away. The radio show's over, but Monica's not going anywhere. Now we can be done with commercials. It's so very fun that you have this tasting facility. I'd love to get myself there. Oh my gosh. Well, and you can always consider me, just like, I'll just keep plugging my taste testing skills here. You can always consider me if you ever want to taste test from a shipping standpoint. So I'm in Los Angeles, you're in Virginia. You're doing a lot of direct to consumer, I would imagine. Really so you hard. Need to figure out how the product handles across countries.
We'll start on Wednesday. How about that?
Okay, fair enough. Oh my gosh. Okay, well, I'd love to end the conversations with, we talked a little bit about your predictions, but and we talked about how much things have changed so recently, but I'm wondering if you can look back, and usually I say, what do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now? You can change that to 5 years ago or 7 years ago. But as you look back, what do you wish you knew then that you know now?
This isn't so much obviously seafood related or food company related, but it is something I'd like to share that has really changed, just changed my trajectory in business and how I think about things. So I talk a lot about overcoming obstacles and failure. And I wish I would have known 10 years ago that if you practice mindful awareness, that failures and obstacles are actually there to help you and guide you. If you can somehow step out of the stressful part of that failure situation and remember that it's there to teach you a lesson, those lessons, a little snippet of a lesson, or maybe pointing you in a different direction, can change everything.
Mm-hmm. I love that you say this. I often say to myself when I'm having tricky times that when things get really hard, or there's failure, or you trip up, that's really my moment to shine, because all the times that things were easy, that was the dress rehearsal. That's when I was practicing and there was no pressure and it was easy. Now it's opening night at the opera or whatever, opening night on Rockstar Stage, and all those times that were easy, that I was, getting things under my belt. Now it's my opportunity to use those skills and really pull myself up by the bootstraps. So I try to tell myself, this is my moment to shine, so that when I look back, I'll say, like, hey, I did a good job. Maybe it wasn't perfect, but it was the best I could do at the time. And that's really what I want, is I want to get out of those bad times by looking back and say, I did the best that I could, and not say, like, oh gosh, I wish I handled that better. So I just try to say, like, this is your moment to really be like, do a great job. So
that's what I said right before I got on here.
I know that you were nervous, and yet you're such a natural. Everybody listening live on Facebook and LinkedIn, she was nervous before this, but that makes no sense. You're a natural. And you do have so much information to share with us. So I really do hope that you'll come back and be sort of our barometer for plant-based seafood. I'd like to have this conversation every 6 or 9 months. I think the industry is changing so quickly. Mm-hmm. It's great to always have our minds wrapped around it. This is a little link to what you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now, but if you are having a bad day, like that day in the moment, is there one phrase that you say to yourself to get yourself out of a funk?
Let that shit go.
We're no longer on radio, so you can say that. Okay, you got your marching orders, everybody. Let that shit go. Yeah, that's great. Just holds you back. So, of course, yeah. I love it. Okay. Well, this is a food show in the end, in some way or another, be it business or just a lifestyle show. So, what's your favorite snack? You're too busy. You're running around. You can't stop for lunch. What's your favorite snack?
Do you know what I love? I love those dang chips, coconut chips.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because every time I taste it, I think I have low expectations, and I taste them like, dang, this is good.
Well, you're
last I'm like, well, they just nailed the name.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you're really singing their song there. But, Mind Blown does that for me because that name is the exact expression when you have a food that you're like, I didn't think they'd get it, and they totally nailed it. So, yeah, this is so fun for your products. Well, we've talked about a lot of things today, from the entrepreneurial perspective to the environmental perspective to just the new business perspective, the new frontier that we're on. Is there anything else you sort of feel like, ooh, everybody should really know this about plant-based seafood?
Oh, there's a lot that I want people to know about plant-based seafood. I guess from our perspective, we get a lot of pushback from the seafood industry, and that we came from the seafood industry, sometimes from both sides, right? And we like to say, we're doing the exact same thing we've always done, which is really cared about the seafood experience. Mm-hmm. And instead of from animals, we're just now making it from plants, but we're still focused on creating that awesome, amazing seafood experience for consumers that we've always done and cared about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's wonderful. In a way, everyone gets so like, oh my gosh, the world is changing and our culture is changing. And what does it say about me if I don't eat meat, and all this drama. And ultimately, it's just about eating something really good. It's about eating. I mean, if you imagine, we've got these world problems, the slave trade, the environmental issues, the welfare issues, our own healthcare system is imploding as we speak, given our obesity and diabetes. And heart disease. The solution is to eat our way out of it. Could you ask for anything better? Gosh. So, it's not all the drama, everybody. Just we're going to move through this and be in a better place. Monica, I want to thank you for being with me. And of course, shout out to Monica. And you do want to check out her website, plantbasedseafood.com. I'm Elysabeth Alfano. If you've got any questions for me, of course, reach out to me on LinkedIn or elisabethalfano.com. But I do hope, Monica, that you will come back. It has been great to have you here. Everybody, she's going to send me some samples. I'm going to let you know what it's all about. And hopefully they'll be able to get their mind blown scallops, shrimp, and crab cakes very soon. I'm guessing East Coast first, and then the rest of us have to wait. But you never know. You never know. Okay, everybody. Well, stay tuned to Plant-Based Business Hour because Monica's going to be back. That's for sure. Monica, don't go away. Everybody else, thanks for all you do. See you all on Thursday for another Plant-Based Business Hour. Bye, everybody.